Hello, friends, and welcome back to Homeschool Together. We are in week 2 of ancient Egypt, and we had a good time talking about mummies and gods and goddesses. We were
Yeah.
covering the afterlife. We've come back from the afterlife. We've been reborn for week 3, ready for week 3 next week, but this week we're going to talk about week 2. This was a really fun week.
It was really good.
We had a great time. But before we begin, as promised, I'm going to talk a little bit about the nature
I
connection.
love how last week you were like, hey, we have post-its, it comes with a ruler. It doesn't come with a ruler. That's just what we're using as a bookmark.
It comes with a ruler because I put it there. Anyway, so the reason why I always have a ruler and a lot of times is there's a lot of drawing involved in this book, and there's a lot of counting and measuring and everything. And so it's really just cool to have a cool ruler. Even if you found like a half-foot ruler, that would probably be just good enough. This one I know it kind of sticks out a little bit. It's kind of annoying, but really helpful. So then obviously you can see we talked about a little bit last week. We have the 2 bookmarks because you're typically doing this book in 2 pieces. You're doing the activities and then also, following the month of the year that you're in. And that can be depending on when you start your curriculum. Obviously that's going to vary. We started in June, end of
Right.
June. And so we've gone through the end of June, July, and now we're towards the end of August here. But really, really cool book. This is a book you're meant to write in. This is a consumable book. So it's really cool. It's like probably one of the first times I've seen like a 300-page consumable workbook
Yeah.
that looks like a textbook. So inside my heart, I feel really bad. I know you were always okay with highlighting books in college. I did not like doing that. I liked dirtying the bindings of my books for some weird reason, but I hated writing in books. But just as examples, we were like doing some birds, and so I had my daughter write a American eagle here
Yeah.
and whatnot. So there's just all these fun little exercises. Go look up at the sky and draw a picture of you looking up at the sky. And so there's these really cool like examples. Like this was a good one. This was actually really fun. They were practicing doing sketching, and so they were talking about how naturalists love to draw and sketch and observe the world. And so the first thing we had to do is we had to draw and look, but without actually looking at what we were drawing.
Oh,
So
fun.
I drew a lamp, which was okay, and then she drew a water bottle. And then
That's actually not bad.
it's not a bad water bottle, and then eventually you can start to look at what you're drawing. And then from there, I think there's one more here where you add some color and you do the third part of the sketch and do some shading. So
That's fun.
really fun, but they're all about observing the world around you, going and seeing and looking outside. And I have not found that I could do any of these activities, beyond, say, our backyard or the park right down the street or whatnot. So you don't have to go to crazy places to do these activities in here. And then in the month of the year, it's really cool. Like, for example, we were talking about water creatures in August. And so around here, salmon are a really important thing. So I had her draw salmon, and we just talked about salmon for the day, a little bit about salmon, watched a little video on salmon. So just simple little activities, and it's the centerpiece, I think, of the nature study in the book. And I have enjoyed this. And a lot of times I felt like the book has drawn us back in. And when compared with the one small square, reading, they pair really nicely together. I think Emily did a really good job at pairing these two because they feel coherent. It doesn't feel like a lot of work, but it is fun enough and it's different enough. I mean, I really recommend the work that these people have done to make this book. It's really enjoyable. A lot of times it can be kind of hit and miss with some of these nature stuff, but this has been really fun. So we've enjoyed it.
And I think what's nice about this is that you can choose. I mean, the first part you talked about,
Yeah.
that's kind of going in order.
Yeah.
But then the second half of the book is all by month. So whichever month you start in, you just go to that one. Sometimes when you do a nature study,
Yeah.
they can be very seasonally dependent, and then
Very
you
much.
need to like jump around.
Yeah, especially if like a curriculum, like in lesson 34 is talking about winter, and you started in winter, but like you're doing lesson 1, it's over here, and you're having to hop between the curriculum like that. Just makes it a lot easier. This is really cool. I love it. I like this.
Yeah, it's a good workbook.
Absolutely.
So we recommend the Nature Connection.
Absolutely. So we finished the Egyptian diary, the journal of Nakat.
Yep.
Nakat. I have trouble with these names. I apologize. But this is a really fun little journey of a young boy who's a scribe. So this is not a worker or a farmer. He's kind of like in that upper middle top tier class of society in ancient Egypt, but he's not in like the elite category. His father's a scribe, he's a scribe, and they've been called up to Memphis. They live down by Thebes to join the pharaoh's scribe, a corps of scribes, and he's learning to become a scribe. So it's going through like the fears and
Yeah.
anxieties of a young boy becoming a scribe. He has a sister and I think an older brother as well, and his father. And there's like some turmoil about a stolen, somebody raided one of the tombs, and they had to figure out kind of who it was, but
Interesting.
through the form of a diary. And what's really cool is I loved the artist here is just top notch. But there's not a lot of art. But when he does, he has these full page spreads that are just, there's so much detail. Both my daughters, when we got to one of these spreads, we'd have to pause the reading so they could look at all the detail, just the detail. And the way the artist did it, he kind of had this. He has this style that's very emotive in the drawing. So it's like the bad guys are really bad and they're craggy faces, and the good people are like. So he has a really
Oh, that's fun.
expression, a lot of expression in the faces. So there's a lot to look at, and short read. I mean, my goodness, it
Yeah.
took 2 weeks after the what was it, the Golden Bowl, to this, and it was, this is a really brisk read. You will find you could sit down and just knock out the whole book in a week. It's not a long read.
So yes, this is planned for 2 weeks, but you could, I guess, definitely do it in 1 week.
Yeah.
So we talked about it a little bit last week, but final review is very positive.
It's very positive. I liked the Golden Bowl a little bit better because I just thought it was a more fleshed out story. It's hard to tell a story in diary form
Yeah.
that is really compelling because there's
Dracula did it.
yeah, a la Bram Stoker, but he did a decent job at it. But I'm not really a big fan of diary storytelling, but my daughters didn't care. They enjoyed it. So
Cool.
that's a personal thing. So that
Fun, especially to be from the perspective of a child.
should we do it? Should we do it?
Yes. So for our fun reading, we read Theodosia and the Serpents of
Now,
Chaos.
this author you liked, and this is the author that did the
Right, so this is the same author that did Nathaniel Flood. So if
Nathaniel
you've been
Flood.
following us from the beginning, we did Nathaniel Flood, which was very much at that first grade level, was perfect. This is not. This is a higher level than that.
Potter level writing. I mean, not like quality, but like that size.
Yeah, this is probably a later elementary type
Later elementary.
book. So the reason that we read this is it's all about Egypt. But this is one of the recommendations or one of the selections for Torchlight. And I originally bought some of the books to do Torchlight level once I had it around. This is about a girl whose parents work for one of the British, not the British Museum, but a different one. And the parents are Egyptologists and she can sense curses. So there's kind of some magical elements to it and things. So I thought this would be great. And there's 4 books in the series and they made a show for HBO, which actually has been pulled down now. We can't find it. So I thought, great, we're going to read this book. It's going to be awesome. I hate this book. Absolutely hate this book. So my problems with it are, it is a bit too advanced for this level of age, and it's like 350 pages.
It's here long. It's
Which
almost
is
400. I think.
It's 350.
330. Yeah, 350.
It's so long and it's so overblown. Like each chapter has so much extra in it that you just
It's overwritten.
it's way overwritten and lots of meandering storylines and motivations that don't make sense. This being said, our daughter loved
She was
this
chomping at the bit to get it.
We had to
And
start
we
tag teaming.
We
it.
tag teamed at
We
the
tag
end.
teamed at the end just to get through the darn thing because I was like, I'm so done with this book. So, I'm really sad that I bought 4 books. I think that my daughter might really enjoy this when she gets older and read it
about
to herself.
3 or 4 years, I think she's going to rip through these
Maybe
books.
she just reads it herself and she loves it.
Yeah.
I think part of my problem is
And you really liked Nathaniel Flood.
I really
Same
liked
author.
Nathaniel Flood, but it was
how it
simpler
works.
and it had to move brisker because it was a simpler book. It was shorter. This is just it's so blown out. And
I found myself, I know exactly what you're talking about. The few chapters at the end that I read, I felt like every paragraph, where it's describing what's happening, you could read the first and last sentence of the paragraph and you wouldn't miss any context.
yeah. He goes, "This is the secret. Just do this."
You
You
have
would meet characters that never come back again and have no real bearing on the plot.
Yeah.
Weird stuff happens. There's things that don't make sense.
It felt like they were trying, like the author was trying to do the education plus narrative plot, and there was a lot of like
bit.
little allusions to like stuff you're going to read in your nonfiction books was brought into here as kind of a reminder about ancient history, ancient Egypt history, It felt like a little too much.
It wasn't done well. It's way too long. If you can get it on audiobook and your kids want to listen to it in the car
Yeah.
while they're coloring or doing other things.
And we did confirm it is on Audible, so if you have an Audible
Right.
account, you can do it.
Unfortunately, our library doesn't
Our
have
library,
an audiobook.
yeah, our library did not have the audiobook for it.
So our daughter was kind of bummed because she would like to read the rest of them, but I mean, we just can't. I can't do it. And I think part of the problem with this too is that Build Your Library selects such really high quality, you know, Emily Cook selects such high quality books that when I read something that's more fluffy, it's got to be brisk and fun and keep me entertained. Otherwise, I'm like, ooh, we could have read a more high quality book than this because it just wasn't enjoyable.
When you only have so much time at the end of the night, and it's hard to justify having to plot through a 350-page book that maybe you're not enjoying. And that's kind of the weird thing when we are working with the young learners, is that when we are reading to our kids, it actually affects two people as opposed to one person. Like if I don't like a book, I could just stop it and go on to another one. But we're trying to do this for the curriculum, and you're not enjoying it, but our daughter is really enjoying it. And then I felt kind of bad because towards the end we were kind of like, oh, I don't want to read it, but our daughter's like, why? I really like it. And so
it was kind of a bummer.
It was maybe a little bit of negative connotations on it, but I could see your complaints. But there's ways to get around that if you
So
just
if you
read
want to
pieces.
read something, I mean, it's definitely totally on topic for Egypt. And she goes to Egypt in it, part of it and stuff. It's just way too long for the amount of time they have to put into it. So if you can find it on audiobook, go for that. But it is well above this level. There's plenty of things I had to explain to our daughter. And we've read Harry Potter, so we've read, more advanced stuff, but there was just a lot of because it's British, there's a lot of word choices and stuff I had to explain to her. And I just don't think it's worth the effort. So that's my review.
The Woman Who Would Be King Hatshepsut, because I struggled with that last week. I've been practicing. The Woman Who Would Be King.
This is the book that I've been reading.
This is a new angle, guys. We're starting something new here.
Yeah. So it's the adult education. Last week we talked about the rise and fall of ancient Egypt, which was very good. I didn't finish that because I had to keep moving on, but it was super good, and I think I'm going to get it on audiobook because it was really, really great. This one is all about Hatshepsut, and
this is the one you can't stop reading.
Oh my gosh. This is the most interesting book, you
and
guys.
what's cool about it is it's only about 230, 240 pages
right.
long.
And I'm over halfway through this book, and I don't read nonfiction books in general. I find I just fall asleep. But this has been so interesting. I have learned more through this book about what ancient Egyptian life was really like and the struggles that they had and things than in anything else I've ever read. Now, one of the things about this that you should know is that it's a lot of conjecture because the Egyptians didn't really write down all the saucy details about things. They really recorded kind of official events and official versions of what happened. So how people felt about things and their emotions and stuff like that stuff's not recorded. So there's a lot of the author saying, hey, this happened when her toddler nephew became pharaoh. How do we think she felt about that? Did she mentor the boy? Did she hate the boy? Did she push him off in a corner and not think about him? So there's a lot of, the whole book is filled with what ifs. Do you think she felt this way? We can reasonably say that because the ancient Egyptians viewed this,
a lot of conjecture.
Part of society this way, that she likely interpreted it this way. So there's a lot of that. So if that kind of thing would bother you, then this isn't a good book for you. But I found it really fascinating because it would basically say what we know about other parts of society, what we know about these rituals, what we know about the role of this person in society.
Inferences into what maybe
they make a lot of inferences. Yeah. So it's a lot of that because we don't have great historical records. That being said, fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. I really, really enjoy this book, and I can't wait to finish it. So, The Woman Who Would Be King, definitely recommend for you moms and dads.
Absolutely. All right. So first thing, wonderful thing to have just kind of sitting around during these weeks. But we kind of dove into it because there's a lot of, the focus being on mummies and gods and goddesses, is the Mummy Fandex.
Gods and Mummies.
Gods and Mummies and
Gods and Pharaohs.
Gods and Pharaohs, yeah. But they have all these wonderful kind of breakouts, Amenhotep and different warfare. I think there's a couple on the gods here.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool.
So there's information on the front and then also on the back side as well. So
our kids love to flip through this, and they're really short. So we can
Yeah.
do a couple of these a day.
Yeah.
We can just start at the next one and say, okay, we're going to read about the ka and the ba. It's got the picture. We read this, and then we read what's on the back. It's pretty short.
Really fun. I noticed actually my 4-year-old actually going
loves
through it
this.
and looking at them, and it'll be kind of funny. We'll get into the movie that we watched this week, but she recognized
Yeah.
stuff from this Fandex in the movie that we watched, and she was like calling it out, specifically the jackal. What was it Anubis?
Yeah.
And then she called that out in the movie we watched
So these
later
are
this
pretty
week.
cool. These are family field guides. They're just really fun,
Yep.
and as a good alternative.
They have
to,
these for almost everything.
They
Like,
have them for a lot of things,
Yeah.
so these are really good. You can often find these on Book Outlet. I think that might be where I got this
and
one.
Goodwill as well. They tend to have these in there. So
Yeah, so
definitely take a look.
Fandexes are really good.
Blast Back, which is kind of a series of ancient
Yeah,
history
and I
books.
think that this one was maybe from Torchlight,
Yeah.
but this was really good actually.
This was really good. What I liked about it is while it looks slightly long, and I think it's almost 100 pages, it is a very quick read.
This is very first grade appropriate.
Very young, very, yes, you're right. It's very age appropriate for this
Right.
age group. Wonderful kind of like cartoony drawings, broken up into about I think a dozen chapters that just tell very high surface level information about various aspects of Egypt. I would actually encourage you, if you're going to get this, read this along with Nakat, like the ancient the diaries, the Egyptian diaries book, because as you're reading that, maybe you do like 5 or 6 pages. You could do like 5 or 6 pages of this. I actually sat down and we read this in a single sitting. We just ripped right through
Yeah,
it. It was
this
not
is a really good one, and it has some fun kind of illustrations.
fun,
in it,
very
too.
fun illustrations,
Just
very
super easy.
easy reading.
So this one's a really fun.
Like something that I like to do a lot of is read while they're eating breakfast, and it's a cheap way for me to like kind of double up on time and save a little bit of time. Books like this were really helpful in that time. Some of the other books can be a little bit more intensive, and you maybe want them to focus a little bit more. But this was so light and easy. Being able to read this information while like they're eating or doing something, just sitting and maybe like drawing and stuff like that, really helpful. Really
This
helpful.
is a good one.
Nice little balance there. The gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt.
Okay, so I kind of want to talk about this one, and I want to talk about the Marsha Williams book together.
Absolutely. So we have the Marsha Williams book here.
Okay, so we have two. So let's talk about this one first. So Gods and Goddesses of Ancient Egypt, Egyptian Mythology for Kids. This is a book that has some really beautiful illustrations.
About 2 pages per spread, 2 or 3.
No, it's a bit more than that.
Okay, a little bit
It's
more.
a bit more, but so this is a really good book, but this is a better book for a late elementary because it tells everything like a story, which I really enjoy. I think that kind of storytelling approach works really well. But there's a lot of just the language that they use and some of the concepts, because one of the things about Egyptian gods is they weren't kind of static. So they would have, Ra, and then Ra has all these different forms, and then eventually they come up with the god Amun, and then they make Amun Ra, and there's a bunch of different forms and things of the gods. It can be a little bit difficult to understand, and so the way that this tells it is really comprehensive. And if you've got, a 5th grader with you and you're doing ancients, this is a really cool book. I mean, even if you have someone older. I thought it was really fascinating to read. I just don't think that this is as appropriate for 1st grade. So this is a book that we actually got from family as a gift because our daughter loves ancient Egypt. So I think this is a super high quality book, but is a bit older learners.
Yep.
Now, juxtapose that with this one. So this one is Ancient Egypt, Tales of Gods and Pharaohs by Marsha Williams.
We've covered a number of Marsha Williams books from our Around the World journey.
Did we talk about?
I believe there were a
books?
few like Ancient Egypt. I think there was a Roman book that we also covered
Yeah,
as
so
well.
we've got other books of hers that we're going to talk
We covered
about.
it in our Around the World journey that I think we're going to bring back here as we
Right,
do
when
the
we do
ancient
Rome.
civilization. Yeah.
So what's nice about this is it's told in kind of this graphic novel, comic book type form. Really accessible for kids. Our daughter loves this. So I highly recommend this book.
Nice
and there's
foldouts as well.
fun foldouts. And so it talks about some of the major Egyptian gods, and then it talks about, Tut's in there, and Hatshepsut, a couple of the famous pharaohs. Everything is told kind of story-like, but this is really easy for kids to uptake with great illustrations. So we purchased this book, and I highly recommend it. We're not quite finished because the end of it is about Tut and stuff, and we're getting to that next week.
Next week, yeah.
But so far, the parts that it's covering about gods and goddesses has been really good.
Absolutely, and I think
It's not super comprehensive.
she does a whole line of these books. I think we have the Iliad and the Odyssey as well in this form as by
Yeah,
Marshall
so I
Williams.
mean, I think that this is just got Ra, Isis, Seth, and Horus are the main gods. So this isn't going to be comprehensive, but if you've got a true first grader, I think this is probably gives you enough of the gods that you need.
Last week we talked about kind of a flip-in look.
Yep.
We have another one here, the Usborne flip-in look, See Inside Ancient Egypt.
So
Again,
the last one was mummies and pyramids.
and this one is more of like comprehensive.
About the whole society,
Yeah.
and it has just these great lift the flaps throughout.
Yep.
These books are fabulous, and they're just, I mean, the illustrations, the detailed illustrations are so
You can see
good.
we're getting a lot of wearing here on the edges. This has been trafficked a lot in the household.
Yes,
both
well loved.
both the 4-year-old and the 8-year-old really enjoy this book. So yep.
Yeah, I
There's
think
another
it's great.
example.
They have these on Rome and Greece, and we actually do have them.
Yep.
I think that if you're going to invest in one type of these books, this is probably the one to get. These See Inside books, I think they have a lot of longevity.
They do.
Right? Our kids are going to just keep looking at these. We find our kids looking at these just for fun all the time.
Yep.
So.
The Insides of Egypt.
Yes, this is Insiders. This is a great one to find at Thrift. That's where we found it. But it's cool because it has all of these 3D renderings, and they're they take X-ray is the wrong word, but a see-through view.
Yeah, they kind of the
stuff.
exploding view, the cross-sectional view. Yep. They had one right here.
Do they have one?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of cut up.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. So this is all just computer rendered, really neat. I think that this is a fun book. Our kids really like this
You can
one.
get it at the library. I would absolutely encourage it.
Yeah, I think it's good. So yeah, Insiders Egypt.
Since we did discuss mummies, there was kind of a focus this week. We did break out the eyewitness book Mummies, because why not? And we went a little bit deeper into the mummies. We'll talk about the art project here that you kind of see the top of here. But this was just a lot of fun, kind of getting more in depth around this. Now, if your child is a little squeamish around seeing kind of mummified human remains, that may be a little uncomfortable. If you've had
maybe skip this one.
a recent death or something in the family, you may want to just go light up across this. But this was something. What we really like about these eyewitness books is that you see real, authentic artifacts that have been, preserved and found and are in museums. You get that kind of a museum experience, and also allowing you to pick and choose what your kid likes to look at and say, oh my, I really like the sarcophaguses, all the designs of the sarcophagus. Maybe that then leads you into doing a sarcophagus art project or something of that nature. Just having something here and to see what kind of piques the interest, I think is really, really helpful. And these are books that we don't read the whole thing. We may read pieces here and there, but really these are meant to just sit around and be kind of, living museums in our basket that our kids can look at.
I literally found this on our daughter's floor as we were going to make this video because
Where's the mummy
it
book?
travels around the house as the kids look at it. So this doesn't cover just Egypt. This has also got some Andean mummies and some bog bodies. Our kids are particularly interested in bog bodies because we saw them when we were at the archaeology museum in Dublin. So so these are fun, and we could refer back to this when we talk about other civilizations.
When we get into some of the later weeks here when we get to Incas and Aztecs, that will come back as well.
So I think that's actually, we're going to get to Incas, Aztecs later, right? Because we're going to do Mayans, but Inca and Aztec is later.
I don't know. I haven't gone past week 8 or 9.
Here's where our public school, your private school, educational knowledge about history time periods is not great.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I'm loving is I feel like I have a better understanding now about this than I ever have in my life.
Absolutely. Just a little bit of artwork that came from the Build Your Library curriculum. These are pages from the thing. Obviously, less effort here. Sometimes you can't get max effort. You can get a little bit better effort some other days. You can see how, hey, listen, these are the problems that the people end up facing. Is some days
like
your daughter looks at it and says, I'm giving you the stick figure alien guy here, and I'm going to not even color the Sphinx. I'm going to use a pencil. And that's just what you're going to get for the day. And other days you get some nice shading around the Nile River. But it's very square, very square.
But this is nice. So there's activity pages at the end of the curriculum for all the different weeks, and you can find some easy coloring pages, which is really great. Nice activities.
So
this is one I found. I'm really excited about this.
This is very cool, but there's a little bit of a preamble.
Oh.
Matthew and Ariel why do you have so many toilet paper rolls? Well, as homeschoolers, we all understand that kids be weird.
Kids.
And our oldest, for some reason, has been hoarding toilet paper rolls.
She wants to like, I
She
don't
wants to
glue
build
them
binoculars.
together.
She had some
She
idea.
wants to make little storage cubbies with them. They were all stacked up on her windowsill. And I said, hey,
She had like,
like
she
20
had like
of
20
them.
of
It was
them.
a lot.
It was a lot. And it was funny because she'd come out of the bathroom and you'd see her like check like she's a spy and then run up the stairs. She's like, what are you doing? And you see the flash of brown paper in her hand.
Steals the
She runs upstairs when the toilet paper is done. Anyway, so we decided to take these and essentially fold over the edges to create kind of the ears, and we created little canoptic jars.
Yeah.
And
Aren't they cute? So you can just
do
tape
some
over
artwork.
them.
So like on this one, I did a pencil drawing of, I think, Hatshepsut right here is actually that I found
This is
online.
like a little cat mummy.
Yeah,
type
cat
thing,
mummy. And then we also brought in our 4-year-old to do work as well. So there's a little bit of Anubis there.
So you can just fold over the top and use tape like we did, or if you have regular masking tape, you can actually go all the way around these, like and you can do canoptic jars with these, but you can also make cat mummies out of them if you wanted to wrap the tape. But anyway, these are really fun, and the kids just.
This was
really
a great
enjoyed
project,
it.
and what's really cool about it is because it's paper, it actually absorbed the paint, and so it required us to come back and paint again. So this got actually 2 craft blocks to actually complete.
So now I feel like we didn't.
But we had the ancient aliens make an appearance.
So what I feel like though is that I don't know that we got over our problem of saving these, because now that they've been decorated, now she'll definitely not let us throw them away. So I'm not sure that we're winning actually.
We're losing this war. Moving forward, a little bit of videos that we did. We'll keep our canoptic jars out. We did a little bit of videos, nice Nat Geo video. This week we talked a lot about different pharaohs, famous pharaohs. And there was a great video on the mummification process of Seti I, who was, I believe, the father of Ramses II, which made some appearances in the books that we read this week. That's Ramses the Great. But Seti I had this wonderfully preserved body, creepily preserved body, like it looks real. And we watched a nice video about that in conjunction with, doing the canoptic jars, doing the mummification process, learning about what natron is, which is
The salt.
sodium carbonate, decahydrate, which is, yes, it's essentially baking soda. And there's like these natural deposits in the area just outside of Cairo, and so that's where they got the salt. And I was like,
We asked that question
last week. Last week I said, I got to
did
find
they
out
get
what
the
this is.
salt?
I keep seeing this name. I got to figure it out. So we did. We watched some videos on where that comes from. So again, just words that we don't understand, things that we don't understand, leading to additional learning. A lot of fun. So we did that. And we watched, one of the great ancient Egypt stories of all time. And speaking of ancient aliens, Ariel, what movie did we watch?
So
Stargate.
yeah. We like to just watch fun movies, and so our kids had seen that and they were like, what is this movie we saw,
Guys,
these pyramids? And we're like,
I challenge you.
it's-
I challenge the people out there, other than watching Mummies on Hulu. I didn't watch that.
Also silly.
I challenge you to find a better ancient Egypt. I'm sorry, did I say ancient aliens? Ancient Egypt aliens movie about ancient Egypt and
It's
Stargate.
So
I mean, it's
silly.
great.
It's so silly.
The girls loved it.
They really enjoyed it.
They were enthralled the whole time.
Yeah. Right. So, we're trying to keep things fun while we're doing all of this real and serious study. Then we'll watch silly movies and
just take it as an opportunity.
silly
Listen,
things.
this is homeschooling. You get to do the fun things. You get to do the things that your
It
family.
doesn't always have to be education.
You get to do the things that your family really likes. If you tend to be more of like a nerdy type of family that likes watching, science fiction movies and stuff like that, and that's just who you are and what you guys enjoy, there's no reason why you can't watch Stargate.
You're talking about us.
I'm talking about us.
We're talking about us.
But no, just in general, like if the people out there who are really interested in things, this is why you homeschool, is you get to tailor it to the interests of your family.
Right.
And this is why it's so important. I'm not telling you have to go watch Stargate. You should watch Stargate. But,
so silly.
you should, this is the reason why we do this. They're not going to get that experience at home. They're not going to be able to get that experience sharing their learning with the interest of your family. You don't get that in the schools. And this is why we homeschool. And this is why it's exciting and why it's interesting. So there you go. That was a very eloquent.
That was your pitch.
That was my pitch to say you need to watch Stargate for ancient Egypt.
All right. So thank you guys for sticking with us.
Next
Next
week.
week,
Yeah,
we're
next
going to
week.
be talking about hieroglyphs and King Tut.
King Tut.
which
King
there's
Tut. King Tut has
so
been
much information.
there's been so much King Tut. We haven't talked about Tut. We have read about a lot of Tut already. We're going to do a lot more King Tut. I think Steve Martin will have a musical element there.
Yeah, it's already starting to come up in
It's
our
already
house
coming
as a
in.
favorite. So anyway, stay tuned. We're going to do our last part of Egypt, and then we're going to be moving on.
Moving on. It's been a good journey. See you guys next week.